Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. I'm your host, Oscar Meeks, joined as always by the wonderful Brad Nye. Good afternoon, Brad. How are you doing today?
Good. It's weird. It's like, and Amy can vouch for this. It's like 45 degrees here in
Yeah,
middle of December. This is insane.
yeah,
I'm
it's
loving it. It's great.
it's really nice out down here too. We're like about 50 degrees today, similar to you guys. Sun is shining. I can see the sun shining through my window right now, and looks like we're gonna have a beautiful weekend too. So I'm really thankful
I'm
for that.
excited.
Yeah. Also joining us
Plus,
today is Amy MacElroy, our HR manager for FRSecure. Super excited to have you on the show today, Amy. Thanks for joining us. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. A little nervous, but no. I will say this is my first podcast ever, so I'll leave that caveat. But no, I'm excited to be here, and I'm glad you guys asked me to join.
This is a great first podcast to do. It's casual, it's laid back. We always have a lot of fun on here, so no pressure. You're going to do great.
Yeah,
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, just
And so,
conversation.
yeah, the backstory. I don't know how often you tune in and listen, Amy. I always kind of give Brad a little bit of a hard time because I always ask him how he's doing, and he replies with the weather.
Yeah.
So we always
It's
get the
become an ongoing joke.
That's purely a Minnesotan thing.
yeah.
Yep, that's
I
that's
have
what we have to talk about, I guess.
I've noticed that more and more since Brad and I started talking about that. It's like it really is a Minnesotan thing. It's like a lot of people I'm friends with from Minnesota and Wisconsin area. It seems like, how you doing? Like, oh well, here's the weather. So I
You
like
know
it.
why? Minnesota has the largest discrepancy in low and high temperatures over the course of the year.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I would
It's
believe that.
it's 120 degrees on average difference between our low and high.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I mean, why not? You got to be proud of it.
yeah. Be proud of the chaos. I thrive in chaos. So.
Yes, exactly.
So before we get started, I have to tell you guys a really funny story. I think it's funny. We always talk about how it's holiday season, and scams are on the rise. Right? We had breach giving. Now we're moving into breachmas. Yesterday I got a call, and I'm so excited to tell you guys I actually won third place in the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes.
That still
And
exists.
I didn't know. And it gets even funnier. He said I won $4.5 million and a brand new 2020 Cadillac. And I was like, wow, I won a brand new 2020 Cadillac. He's like, yep, a brand new 2020 Cadillac. I'm like, how did you get that in the year 2023? And then he hung up on me. So,
That's good.
Wow.
well, cool. So we're going to kick off with a couple quick security tidbits for you, and then have a fun conversation with Amy about culture and what culture is, if we can define that. What makes FRSecure's culture special, and how culture really comes to play in employee attraction and retention, and why that's important for us. I'm just going to start, Brad, by saying, holy moly, not only is it Merry Breachmas almost, but check your software. There was so many critical vulnerabilities
Oh my
released in the
gosh.
last week and patched in the last week. I know there were vulnerabilities for Apache Struts, WordPress. Adobe put out a huge update. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but 207
Yeah.
updates in that package.
Yeah.
And there were criticals in their 3D tooling, Illustrator, After Effects, and then Microsoft coming up the rear with 33 vulnerabilities patched, including 4 criticals.
Well, and don't forget the BIOS
Oh,
vulnerability.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. Why not? Let's tackle firmware now.
Yeah. Another day, another vulnerability. One quick thing, too, I just thought of, I wanted to touch on briefly before we dig into the conversation with Amy. And I'm not sure if you've seen this, but the FBI issued some guidance this week, Brad, for delaying the SEC required data breach disclosure. So there are certain situations, right, if
Mhm.
it affects national security, where they will approve delayed reporting. There's guidelines around how to know if you fall into that category of being able to delay that reporting. But one thing I thought was really interesting, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, is there have been concerns raised about this new disclosure rule that could potentially impact and or provide assistance to cyber criminals, because they're saying, oh, well, if we see company A has had 3 data breach disclosures in the last 2 years, that could help me infer they likely don't have good security practices and
Mhm.
increase scrutiny and focus from attackers on those organizations. It's a really funny argument. I'm
It,
just curious what your
you
thoughts are.
know, I've got my own thoughts on that. The SEC rule, yeah, there's so much gray area too, because it's like it's a material breach. But what the heck is material? It's not really well defined, and I think there's
Right.
gonna be a lot of confusion there. But I mean, yeah, you're right, and maybe that company should be changing something if they've been breached 3 times in the last couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And honestly, if I'm a shareholder of those companies, I'm probably not going to be if they continue to have those issues, right? Like they
Yeah.
clearly aren't taking it seriously. So I think
Well,
that's where their will come in.
I think that's the play, right? You hit the nail on the head. It's like businesses, publicly traded companies understand that the reporting of these disclosures will affect the value of those companies on a publicly traded market. And so now they're just kind of whining like, well, but if I report this, attackers are going to know I suck at security and they're going to come at me more. But really, they're trying to protect the value of their company. And also, let's get your stuff together and improve your security program.
Yeah, fix your security.
Yeah.
Lazy bums.
All right. Cool. Let's dig in. Super excited to have you here, Amy. So maybe let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at FRSecure, how long you've been with us, and what did you do before?
Yeah, sounds great. Well, hello, everyone. I do listen to the podcast here and there, but I am not a technical expert at all. So I've been learning a lot about information security myself through my time being here, but a little bit of background about myself. So as we kind of indicated at the beginning, I live in Minnesota, have lived here my whole life, have a family, 2 young kids. So I'm a busy working mom. I have been in the HR industry for about 20 years. My background is really primarily been in manufacturing industries. Both public and private employers, have worked at a much larger organization, global organization. And I joined FRSecure. It'll be 3 years in March. So coming up on 3 years already. It really does fly by. And, I really honestly fell upon the HR role here. I was not familiar with FRSecure before. Like I said, it wasn't in the industry I've been working in, but I was really looking for a change. And the biggest thing that I was looking for was an organization where culture was really something that honestly I didn't have to fix. And being in the manufacturing world for so long, it's a really tough industry to work in, and where you really feel like you're always on this uphill battle. And so I was really looking for a place that cared about people and where I could be a part of that. I didn't have to fight for resources or things that would feel that culture was important or should be a priority. And from the very first time I interviewed with FRSecure, it was just really apparent to me that the leadership was different here. And what was really cool about the opportunity and just been a part of my journey here is I joined as the first dedicated HR. So really I came in at a time where we were really growing a lot. We're still growing. But it was that kind of tipping point for our company of saying, okay, we need to invest more in this area. So yeah, I've been here almost 3 years and really kind of been developing a lot more about that function and what do we look like more than just kind of policies and processes and really kind of digging into what is culture, what do we want it to be, and how do we move forward. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Fun trivia, Oscar. Zach goes to the same school, elementary school as her kids.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Randomly figured that out.
Yeah. Small world.
So I want to touch on something you said that I really appreciate and I like, is that you were trying to find a place where you didn't have to fix the culture. Right? There was already culture there. And I know that's something for me that attracted me to FRSecure as well, was the culture here. And we talk about culture a lot. And for me, it's like one of those things that's rather ambiguous and it's hard to define. But you know it when you experience it, right? And I'll also say too, it blows my mind that you've been here for 3 years and you've done an amazing job. And a testament to that is that when you come into, we come from a position, and Brad can remember this, where we didn't really have HR here before. And we knew we had this culture. And so it was scary, right, to think what if we formalize our HR and then we erode our culture, because we don't want to do that. And so the testament to you doing an awesome job here is not only is our culture remained intact, but I think we're continually improving our culture.
I was going to say it's actively supported.
Yeah. We're actively growing that culture and identifying even gaps in what was already a good culture and trying to close those gaps and improve those. And so I think we all feel that and we all appreciate that here. So I want to ask a question and kind of back to my statement that culture is rather ambiguous and it's really difficult to define. What should we be doing, or organizations who may be listening to better define your culture? And this, I'll stop there, but how do we define culture and how do you better define culture as a business?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I think one everybody toys with every organization of what is it? How do you define it? And then what do you do with it? If I were to boil it down, it's ultimately a combination of the values and beliefs that an organization has and displays. So I think what's really important, it's so easy to try to put those aspirational things on a wall, on a website, whatever it is. But ultimately your culture is really truly defined by what are the actions that you're doing? How are you displaying yourself? And that comes from the top down, which is why I was looking for a place where the tone really was set by leadership, because ultimately that's what's looked at is what do the leaders do? What are the examples they're setting? I've been in places where it's been the opposite, where leaders aren't doing the things they say they want to be or do. Another thing, I like to use this term, and I've started talking more about it this way with our organization. And I think it feels like it's a little bit more tangible, is calling it the employee experience. So culture just feels like, what do I do with that? It's really about the employee experience. And there's lots of elements that go into it. And if you kind of think about it in a simplistic way, that whole life cycle, you're touched by the employee experience from the minute you might apply for a position. What's that experience in applying? Was it really complicated? Was it really hard? What kind of questions are they asking of me? Obviously, through the interview process, you get a sense of that. We kind of talked about that, you and I and Oscar, kind of our experiences. But it's also our entire experience at the organization. So whether it's how meetings are run, rewards and recognition, what's that experience like? How am I maybe being developed? Things around, the technology that's even being used. All of those things drive the experience we're having. And I think by using that term, organizations really can find ways that it feels more tangible to make movements in a culture, especially if you're struggling, or if there's, an area that's really maybe more of a challenge or an issue. Let's say, the recruiting process. Like, what can I do in terms of recruiting to impact that experience that somebody's having?
Yeah, that's really good points. And I love using the term employee experience. And I know you have been a steward here for us in that space and helped us stand up our employee experience committee. And I think we've learned a ton. I'm just beginning to set in with you on those sessions, and I did one last month. And for me, it was really energizing to be in this safe place, right? So I know you create a safe place in those meetings where it's like there's no judgment here, there's no repercussions. It's a safe place. We're gonna, pick topics and talk about and really speak what's on your mind. And I think you do a really good job of making all the employees there feel like they are safe. And I seen that quickly. Like, people were very comfortable to bring up what could be a really challenging conversation in any other format. And so I think that's really important, right? Providing that channel of communication for your employees so they feel safe and they can express what they're truly feeling and what they truly think.
Yeah. And not to get too deep, but I mean, especially as an HR individual, that's a really challenging balance to have, is creating that space where employees really do feel like they can come to you and be open and honest and transparent. Oftentimes HR has a different reputation, especially if you go back, anybody who's been in the working world for, 20 plus years, HR was a very different function. It really was personnel, it was hiring, firing. It really didn't have an impact on everything. So people have a lot of different views or opinions or experiences themselves with HR. And so sometimes it's getting through that of just over time demonstrating what you can bring and how you can, display yourself as a trusted individual. I'm not going to just be tattling or going to somebody else to say, here's the situation, but building that trust. And I think I would love to talk a little bit more about the employee experience committee, but that's also our leadership team. really truly having that open door, where people really feel like if there is a situation that they don't know either how to handle or they disagree with something, one of our values is we tell the truth. We tell the truth. And what I really appreciate is John Harmon, who really talks about, like, no matter what level you're on, I want to hear from you. Like, if you disagree with me, he's saying this, if you disagree with me, I want to hear from you. And I want to hear your concerns. And I think really having that ability for employees to speak up is shown here and demonstrated, and it's not going to just like come back and bite you in the butt.
It's not just words. Like, it is legitimately everybody at every level is open to feedback and improvement. I like to say, and this is the name of an actual book, so I won't get in trouble for this, but we kind of have the no asshole rule, right? Like, it's hiring for that personality, and the people that do turn out to maybe not fit from that culture, they kind of self-weed out. It's kind of crazy. It's not like we're picking on anyone or anything like that, but they realize this is not the right fit for me.
Yeah.
And I think, too, that's a testament. Like, we do a really good job during our hiring process of identifying that candidate who is a good fit for us. And culture is a big part. It's on both sides, right? We want that culture to be able to attract people so our employees feel happy and satisfied being here, too. But we use that culture when we are identifying potential candidates that will work for FRSecure in the future. And it's critically important to, like, keeping that intact, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I do have you're going to laugh at this, but I want to know, when was the first time and what was your reaction when you heard Evan tell the company, I will run over anyone with my truck who sells something to a customer they don't need? From an HR perspective, what were you like, wait, what?
I actually haven't heard him specifically say that, but I have certainly had many experiences, and with Evan and just his personality and style. In fact, embarrassing moment for me coming in. I joined the company in the middle of COVID. So there was hardly anybody in the office. I was going into the office, the people that, worked in the cities. And Evan happened to be there one day, but nobody introduced me to him. He was just talking to somebody else. And I thought he was just somebody who worked here. Had no idea he was the owner, the CEO, because he just displays himself and talks just like everybody else. There's just not that persona of him being better at all. But it was an embarrassing moment for me because I'm like, I did not know who you were. I know he was like, it doesn't matter, and that's the way he is. But yeah, he's definitely a great guy. And I think, again, talking about leadership, like, he does set the tone. I mean, he built this company, and just the way he acts and displays himself is a representation of just, not to get touchy-feely, but he really does truly love everybody. And I do think that kind of ripples into how we care about our employees, is we care about people, really, truly.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that is one of the things that, we talk about what attracted me here. I'm sure it attracted you here too, and you as well, Brad, is that feeling and that culture that was developed. And that leads me to another question too. Specifically in our space, we know there is a shortage, or there's an advertised shortage. I may debate those numbers a bit, but a shortage of information security professionals, right? And so as a result of that, this creates a really highly competitive market. And also, it becomes even more important when we are hiring to be able to attract those right individuals, because the market is so competitive at the moment. How do we outwardly share that culture to be able to attract those individuals to come to FRSecure?
Yeah. Some of the basic things that, if you're in the HR industry, and we're not doing anything like crazy and new and anything that's maybe crazy and out there, but, biggest, I think, opportunity is the fact that you have resources and people that are focused on that. I think before we had an HR department, it was like, who is doing what, all hands on deck. There was just no focus. And so it just becomes an afterthought. And so some of the basic things, when I came in, was really kind of creating a simple recruiting process. making sure we're posting our openings in places that, are accessible and where we know we can find people. LinkedIn has been a source for us in some regards, for some roles. Honestly, a lot of it too is through referrals. I will say we do get a lot of talent through people that are already here. So really helping encourage people to share the opportunities with their networks. And we do, things, and especially Amber, who's joined my team this year, has been doing a lot with trying to share more insights into who we are through like our LinkedIn posts and some of that, our FRSecure page. So you might see some of the things that we do, like more in our FR Serves, who focuses on volunteer opportunities. We've been trying to showcase more of that, and we're upgrading our bios for the executive leadership team, just for people to have more insight into who we are. And then a big focus really is, once we have gotten those individuals kind of in the pipeline, is really being intentional about our communication with them, being really on top of, engaging with them, not losing them in the process or taking weeks and weeks and weeks to make decisions, like really engaging them through the process. That's how you're going to keep people kind of hooked. I think that's a really important part. Really how we talk about it too. How do we talk about it when we're talking about it with candidates, and really sharing that experience in an authentic way of what we are, who we are, and what we really value here as an organization, and how we feel like they could be a part of that.
One thing that I noticed that you guys do a really good job at, and it's a challenge with other employers in our space, is I think when we have a job posting and we have that roll up, it's very easy to understand what that job is. Right? It's very clear cut. It's very well defined. Here's what your responsibilities. Here's the individual we're looking for. Here's the qualifications we need. And while that may seem like a simple thing, we did an episode. You remember this, Brad? I think it was a couple years ago, where we randomly pulled job postings online for information security roles, and we reviewed these live. And I would review these postings, and and I've been in this space for 20 years now, and I get to the end of that job posting, and I have no idea what individual they're looking for. There's no clear direction. We see a lot of people just literally word spraying in these postings because they don't even know what they need, right? So I need the security person that just does the security things. And as practitioners, we understand, like, that's not a role, right? What does this role actually mean? And Brad, I'm sure you've seen that a lot as well.
Oh yeah. And I think, that's a good point. The other thing I want to make sure we talk about is, how our retention, right? When you look at from an operations for consulting and tech services, I was sitting here, I was like, when was the last time somebody left? And was it Seth? And then he came
back? Had Seth leave. So I tout that a lot. We have almost, for the security team, like a 0% negative attrition rate, right? 0% negative attrition. We had one individual leave, and it came back like 6 or 8 months later, maybe 9 months later. I told him when he left, like, hey, we'll save a seat for you, man. Just let me know.
And we did.
But how do you manage that? Because that in this industry, that's unheard of.
Yeah. It really is. And, I hadn't worked in this industry, but I'd worked in engineering, which has some of that similar challenges with recruiting and retaining. And it felt like we were always like turning over. Here, actually, I can say, because I do track this number, we're at 8% company turnover. So that's company wide, which is very low. And, it doesn't take much for our numbers to change, being that we're about 100 employees. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, we kind of hover 8 to 10% is our turnover. And I truly believe that some level of turnover is good. We've even Oscar, right? We've lost people. It's like, well, you'll be back. Yeah. Maybe you'll learn some things and bring it back to us. And having some new ideas and fresh ideas too. But yeah, retention. I think, again, it all like goes together, but the culture is what I truly believe keeps people here. Once they're here, they just have an experience that honestly you really don't have other places. It's if you haven't worked, especially in the public sector, like publicly held company or public sectors, like that's just a different world, and you might not have some of the same appreciations. I think truly it really boils down to the fact that we really care about our employees, and we do things where, for instance, right, with COVID, we didn't lay anybody off. Like, we did everything as a company to protect our employees. And thank goodness we could do that, and that's not always the strategies some organizations have. We really try to be as competitive as we can in benefits. Benefits been a big thing that we've talked about the last couple of years, in, what we can provide our employees, how much we're paying for some of the premiums and cost sharing in that, compensation, how we're paying competitively. And yeah, just really that people feel like they can grow and develop. I think that's one thing we haven't maybe talked enough about yet, but just the fact that we bring in a lot of, especially, like pen testers and stuff. We're hiring a lot of people early on in their career, and we're able to grow and develop them. And that fact that we really invest in people, put that time and resources. So many organizations focus on hiring the best talent, because I need somebody now, but that doesn't always engage them throughout their whole career, right? So like being able to bring people in who can grow and develop and kind of in some ways groom into our culture a little bit, in the best ways, has been really effective for us in providing those opportunities for growth. And then providing opportunities within other areas. We've had people move from IR to consulting. Brad, you yourself, I know you probably shared lots on the podcast about like your career development within the organization. Oscar, you really being able to be more nimble in that and provide those opportunities, and sometimes tailor a little bit about the job skills and stuff that we need to the talents that people bring. I think we're a little bit more creative than that, than other companies.
I mean, Victoria is, I think we had her on the podcast at one point when we did our Women in InfoSec with Evan.
Yeah.
I mean, she came in from, like, I want to say she was in the insurance industry, I think. And she came in as an associate on the consulting side, got her CISSP, and now she was moved over to tech services as a scanner. Now she's doing external pen tests, I think, Oscar? Or
vulnerability analyst right now.
Yeah. Okay. So, but on the way to being able to do that. So like, it is great because it's like, well, we've got somebody who fits the culture. Let's make sure that they're doing what they want to do.
Yeah, that's been a big key point for all of the hiring and decision making since I've been here. At least I know, and I think before too. And it's apparent. It's like Eric had a really good statement. I remember talking to him about this years ago. He said, I can teach your grandma to pen test. Right. But she's got to have the right attitude.
Sure. He hasn't tried teaching me yet. I'm not sure I can cultivate that.
But I can teach anyone to pen test is the idea, right? But we just have to have the person that's the fit and has the right attitude. And we've been, very protective of our culture as well because of that. Like I mentioned before, we want to bring in those people that are right. And that's another really good point. Like our development is so important to culture. And I think everybody knows here, like you have a development path. We're going to help you with that path. And it can be a really big roadblock for people trying to get into information security because just like you mentioned, we see these job posts that don't make sense and people that are just looking for someone who's very tenured, very skilled. And I see and hear a lot of people complain like it's so hard to get my foot in the door just to begin that path. Right. I do think we do a really good job at giving people opportunities. If you fit our culture, you have the right attitude, you're motivated, and you want to be, a professional in this field, then we put people on that path and we create the best, in my opinion, information security professionals in the field. And then they're here, I think it's like you said, Amy, like I care about everyone on my team and everyone in this company. I'm not just saying that. I truly care about every single person. And I feel that with everybody else too. We really do care about each other. And that's such an anomaly in this space. I've worked at many other places where there couldn't be any words further from the truth. But here, that is truth. And it's really like surprising for people too when they come into our company and they really say like, oh, you guys, like you said, you don't just have these values on the wall. Like I feel it. You're actually living these values. And that's so important. So it's like practice what you preach, right? Don't just put the stuff on the wall.
Well, it's funny when you treat people, you hire someone to do a job, you treat them like an adult and let them do the job. Gosh, people tend to like really thrive in that environment. It's like, what? You're not micromanaging me. I mean, how many times do I think you said it, Oscar. I know Pinky said it. I know bunch of people I brought in, they're like, 3-6 months in, it's like, okay, so when does this change? Like,
Yeah, when does the other shoe drop? Like it doesn't.
this isn't real, right? And I mean,
Yeah,
you've been here what, 5 years now? Almost 5 years
yeah,
now.
5 years. Yeah.
It doesn't. This is really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one final question, and then we'll close. So we've obviously, I think, one takeaway for all our listeners is like your core values really play in your culture, right? And having those core values and acting on those core values is a huge part of that. For us too, we have a very well-defined mission, right? Our mission is to fix a broken industry. And how do you see like mission, and does mission play into culture as well? Or do you feel like mission and values can be independently unique, or do they blend together to be part of that culture?
I think they blend together. I think they both go hand in hand. I think the mission, is ultimately what we're trying to achieve, but the values are what support how we're going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Amy, and I hope all our listeners enjoyed this, and hopefully you got some great things from Amy's vast knowledge on all things employee experience and culture. And so, Amy, we typically like to close the show with just giving a shout out or thanks to someone that you appreciate. And so I won't make you go first since we're just bringing it on you, but we'll ask Brad to go first. Brad, who do you want to give a shout out to today?
I'm actually, Amy, I'm going to give you the shout out for coming on and stepping outside of your comfort zone. And really, hopefully, I think this was an entertaining episode. So hopefully everybody really likes this.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, now, Amy, I'll put you on the spot. Who do we give a shout out to?
I'm going to give a shout out to Amber on my team. She's taken on some new challenges this last couple of months. No surprise, but HR we don't love doing handbooks, policy updates, things like that. She's really stepped out of her comfort zone and done a lot of work lately. And I am just so appreciative of having her on my team. I don't think we would be at this point in our HR journey and development of some of the programs and initiatives that we've been working on without her. And so, yeah, just really appreciate that she's here and a part of it.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to give a shout out to Vinay. We've been working on closing the year out and doing our budget projections for next year and all this stuff that I absolutely hate. And Vinay is a lifesaver here. And without her, I would probably be going insane and crazy right now. So thank you for loving to do numbers and weird stuff that everybody else hates, Vinay. You're awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right. See ya.